My name is Imani Banks. And I never imagined the sound of my father-in-law's coffin being lowered into the ground would be interrupted by the rustle of divorce papers. It was pouring rain in New Orleans. The sky was gray, matching the cold stone of the Jefferson family mausoleum. I stood there, numb, staring at the grave of the only man in this family who had ever treated me with respect. Suddenly, a hand grabbed my shoulder. Not to comfort me, to shove a thick yellow envelope into my chest. I turned. It was Marcellus, my husband. He reeked of expensive bourbon and stale cigars. He leaned in close, his breath hot against my ear, and whispered the words that would end my life as I knew it. Old man's dead. Imani. I'm done playing the good husband. Sign the papers. $600 million is mine now. You're useless to me. He smirked, adjusting the $45,000 watch on his wrist, a watch paid for by my overtime shifts. He expected tears. He expected a scene. But tears are a currency I stopped spending on him years ago. I looked at him the way you look at a bad investment right before you cut your losses. He thought he had won the lottery. He had no idea he had just signed his own death warrant. Please leave a comment letting me know which city you're following from. I really want to know who is listening to this story, to understand why I didn't scream or slap him right there in the rain. You have to understand the architecture of my 5-year hell. I wasn't just a wife. I was the chief financial officer of Jefferson Shipping, one of the largest logistics empires in the South. My days were measured in shipping containers, customs regulations, and 14-hour shifts at the port. Surrounded by the smell of diesel and salt, I managed a fleet of 20 massive cargo ships and 3,000 employees. I was the one who kept the creditors at bay when the market crashed. I was the one who turned a profit when oil prices skyrocketed. But the moment I walked through the doors of our waterfront villa in New Orleans, I wasn't a CFO. I was an ATM with a pulse. Marcellus held the title of Director of Image at the company. It was a fake job his father created to keep him off the streets. His only responsibility was to look rich and stay out of trouble. He failed at both. While I drove a 5-year-old sedan to meetings with angry union leaders, Marcellus was spending $80,000 on a birthday party for himself on a private yacht. He called it networking. I called it theft. I remember coming home one night, exhausted, my feet throbbing in my heels, only to find the house filled with strangers. Music was blasting. Champagne bottles littered the floor. Marcellus was in the center of it all, his arm around a woman who looked like she charged by the hour. When I confronted him, he didn't apologize. He laughed. He told me I was boring. He told me I was lucky to be married to a Jefferson. People always ask me now, Imani, you are a brilliant woman. You manage risk for a living. Why did you stay? Why did you let him drain you dry for 5 years? The answer isn't love. It is biology. It is called the boiling frog syndrome. If you drop a frog into a pot of boiling water, it will jump out immediately. It fights for its life. But if you put that same frog in a pot of cold water and slowly, very slowly, turn up the heat, it will not move. It adjusts its body temperature to match the water. It stays comfortable until the moment it is boiled alive. Marcellus didn't start with the $80,000 parties. He started small. A forgotten anniversary. A small gambling debt he begged me to cover. A harsh word disguised as a joke. Each time, I adjusted. I told myself it was temporary. I justified the cost to fix him. I convinced myself that marriage was about compromise. I didn't realize that my compromise was his fuel. I was sitting in that pot, letting the water bubble around my neck. convincing myself that the heat was just warmth. The only thing that kept me from jumping out was Otis Jefferson, my father-in-law. He was the only one who saw the water boiling. He was the one who begged me to stay, gripping my hand with his trembling fingers during his dialysis treatments. "He is a child, Imani," Otis would say, his eyes filled with shame. "Without you, the company dies. Without you, he starves. Please, just a little longer." So I stayed. I managed the books by day and managed Marcellus's disasters by night. I let the water rise. Until the day Otis died. And the heat suddenly vanished, leaving me cold, clear-headed, and looking at a man who was no longer a burden I had to carry, but a tumor I had to cut out. The truth that would eventually destroy Marcellus was not discovered in a bank vault or a hidden safe. It was handed to me in a room that smelled of cedar, old leather, and dying breath. 3 days before he passed, Otis summoned me to his private study, the oak room. He was frail, his skin pale and translucent like parchment paper, but his eyes were sharp. He gestured for me to lock the heavy double doors behind me. On his desk sat a single black folder. "Sit down, Imani," he rasped, his voice weak but commanding. "We need to talk about the numbers. The real numbers." I sat. I expected him to talk about the quarterly projections or the union negotiations. Instead, he pushed the black folder toward me. "Open it." I flipped through the pages. My eyes scanned the balance sheets, and my breath caught in my throat. I was the CFO. But even I had been kept in the dark about this. Otis had leveraged the entire company, every ship, every container, every square inch of the port to finance a massive expansion into Asia. The numbers were staggering. On paper, Jefferson Shipping was worth $600 million. But in reality, we were carrying exactly $600 million in debt. The empire was a house of cards, held together by the bank's belief in Otis Jefferson. "If I die," Otis said, watching my face closely, "the banks will call in the loans immediately. They will liquidate everything. Marcellus will be left with nothing but the clothes on his back." "Otis," I whispered, panic rising in my chest. "Does Marcellus know?" "No." He cut me off. "And he never will. Because I have a failsafe." He pulled a second document from the drawer. It was a thick insurance policy. A credit life insurance contract designed for high net worth individuals. It stated that upon the death of Otis Jefferson, the insurance company would pay off the entire $600 million debt, leaving the company debt-free and profitable. It was a golden ticket. A clean slate. "But there is a condition," Otis said, his finger trembling as he pointed to a paragraph at the bottom of page 50. "Clause 18b. I read the fine print. "The full benefit of this policy shall only be disbursed if the primary beneficiary, Marcellus Jefferson, is legally married to and residing with the appointed guardian, Imani Banks." At the time of the policyholder's death and the subsequent reading of the will, I looked up at him, stunned. "He is a fool, Imani," Otis said, tears welling in his eyes. "He is reckless. If he gets this money without you, he will burn it all in a year. This clause, this is the only leash I have strong enough to hold him. I made you the lock on his inheritance. As long as he stays married to you, he is a king. If he leaves you, he is a beggar." Otis gripped my hand. His grip surprisingly strong. "Promise me you will guide him. Promise me you won't let him sink." I looked at the dying man. I saw his love, his fear, and his manipulation. He wasn't just protecting his son, he was trapping me. He was using my competence as a life jacket for his drowning child. But in that moment, looking at the claws, I didn't see a trap. I saw a weapon I hoped I would never have to use. I promise. Otis. I lead. I will do what is best for the company. He nodded, relieved, and closed his eyes. He died thinking he had secured his son's future. He didn't know that 3 days later, his son would hand me the key to destroy it all. I stood in the mud, the rain plastering my hair to my skull, looking down at the document dampening in my hands. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Marcellus tapped his Italian leather shoe on the wet grass. Impatient. Come on. Imani. Don't drag this out. You get to keep your little sedan. I keep the empire. It's fair. I looked at him. Really looked at him. He was vibrating with greed, his eyes darting around as if the tombstones were made of gold bars. He had spent the last 3 days counting money that didn't exist yet. He thought he was smart. He thought that by divorcing me before the will was read later this afternoon, he would prevent me from claiming half of his inheritance. He wanted to keep every single cent of that $600 million for himself. Then, Clause 18b flashed in my mind like a neon warning sign. Legally married. At the time of the reading, the will reading was scheduled for 4 o'clock this afternoon at the Sterling law firm. It was currently 11 in the morning. The math in my head was instant. It was the most important calculation of my career. If I refused to sign, or if I stalled until tomorrow, I would still be his wife when the will was read. The insurance policy would trigger. The $600 million debt would be wiped clean. Marcellus would officially be a tycoon. Solvent and powerful. And I would be the discarded ex-wife fighting for a settlement in court for years, while he used his new fortune to bury me in legal fees. But if I signed this paper right now, if I let him rush this to his corrupt judge friend and get the stamp before 4 o'clock, then at the moment the will was opened, Marcellus Jefferson would be a single man. The condition for the insurance would be violated. The policy would be null and void. The asset, the company, would be transferred to him. But so would the liability, the debt, without the insurance to pay it off. The company wasn't worth $600 million. It was worth negative $600 million. Otis had begged me to be the lock on his son's future. He had made me the guardian. But he never told me I couldn't throw away the key. Do you have a pen? I asked. My voice was steady, even, cold. Marcellus blinked. Surprised by my sudden surrender, he fumbled in his jacket pocket and produced a gold Mont Blanc pen. Another toy bought with company funds. Another stolen asset. I clicked the pen. My hand was steady. My resolve was absolute. I didn't think about the 5 years of wasted youth or the lonely nights waiting for a husband who never came home. I thought about the $80,000 party. I thought about the woman in my bed. I thought about the sheer, unadulterated disrespect of doing this at his father's funeral. I pressed the nib to the paper. The ink bled slightly into the damp fiber. Imani Banks. I signed my name. I didn't sign Imani Jefferson. I severed the tie right there on the hood of the funeral hearse. I was shorting his stock, and he didn't even know the market had crashed. Done, I said, shoving the papers back into his chest. He grabbed them, checking the signature like a greedy child checking a birthday card for cash. A wide, ugly grin spread across his face. Finally, he laughed, ignoring the mourners staring at us. You're free. Babe. Go find some accountant to bore to death. I've got a celebration to plan. He thought he had just evicted a tenant. He didn't realize he had just burned down the building with himself inside. I turned and walked away without looking back. I left my umbrella. I let the rain soak me to the bone. It didn't feel like cold water anymore. It felt like a baptism. Speed costs money. In the legal world, speed costs a lot of money. But Marcellus didn't care about cost. He cared about the timeline. He cared about that 4 o'clock deadline at the law firm. He drove straight from the cemetery to the courthouse, bypassing the wake entirely. He called in every favor his father had ever banked with Judge Hatcher. He paid expedited fees that cost more than my first car. He wanted the ink dry. He wanted the stamp official. He wanted to walk into Sterling Law Firm not as a grieving son, but as a single, unattached billionaire. By 1 o'clock in the afternoon, my phone pinged. A digital notification from the court clerk. Decree of divorce granted. I was officially free. And Clause 18b was officially dead. I was in the guest bedroom of the villa, packing my life into 2 suitcases. I didn't take the jewelry. I didn't take the designer clothes he had bought me to show off at galas. I took my laptop, my financial certifications, and the framed photo of Otis and me at the groundbreaking of the new terminal. Everything else, the furniture, the art, the silk curtains I left, they were assets of the estate. And soon, they would be assets of the liquidation auction. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a court document. It was an Instagram notification. Marcellus King has started a live video. I shouldn't have looked, but I needed to witness the hubris. I clicked the screen. The video was shaky, loud, and garish. Marcellus was on the deck of the Lady Otis, the company's 90-foot yacht. The same yacht Otis used to host charity fundraisers for orphans. Now, it was a floating nightclub. Champagne corks were popping. Music thumped so hard the microphone distorted. And there, draped over his shoulder in a white bikini that looked suspiciously like bridal wear, was Zahara. Say hello to the haters. Baby! Marcellus yelled into the camera, his face flushed with adrenaline and vodka. We are official, single, rich, and ready to take over the world. Zahara blew a kiss to the lens. Bye-bye. Boring. She giggled. Then, the screen went black as an incoming call took over. It was him. He was calling me from the party to twist the knife one last time. I swiped answer and put it on speaker. I continued folding my shirts. Did you see that? Imani? He shouted over the wind. I hope you're watching. I hope you see what a real power couple looks like. I saw. Marcellus. I said, taping a box shut. The yacht looks expensive to run. It's pennies, he laughed. I'm worth $600 million. I can buy a fleet of these. Hey, make sure you leave the keys to the Mercedes. That's company property. You can take an Uber to whatever sad little apartment you found. The keys are on the counter, I said, along with the alarm codes and the pending invoices for the Port Authority. You might want to look at those. Boring, he screamed. And I heard Zahara laughing in the background. I don't do invoices. Babe. I do vision. I do legacy. Get out of my house before I get back. Or I'm throwing your boxes in the pool. I'm already gone. Marcellus. I said. Enjoy the party. Really. Sever it. Oh. I will. He sneered. I've won. Imani. Admit it. I won. Good luck. Marcellus. I hung up. He thought the vision was spending money. He didn't know the invoices on the counter were final notices. He thought he was celebrating his coronation. He didn't realize he was live streaming his own financial suicide. I picked up my suitcases. The house was silent. I walked out the front door, leaving it unlocked. There was no point in securing a house that already belonged to the bank. The conference room at Sterling & Associates was designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the New Orleans skyline, and the air conditioner was set to a temperature that kept the spine stiff. I arrived at exactly 3:55 in the afternoon. I wasn't wearing widow's black. I wore a charcoal business suit, my hair pulled back in a tight bun. I walked in not as a grieving wife, but as the outgoing chief financial officer attending a final handover meeting. Marcellus was already there. He had sprawled himself at the head of the mahogany table, spinning in the leather chair that was meant for the executor. He still wore his suit from the funeral, but the tie was loose, and the smell of stale champagne hung around him like a cheap cologne. And he wasn't alone. Zahara sat next to him, scrolling through her phone, popping gum. She wore sunglasses indoors. The disrespect was so loud it was almost audible. Well, look who decided to crash the party. Marcellus sneered as I sat at the far end of the table. You're not family anymore. Imani. Why are you here? Hoping for a pity check? I am here to facilitate the transfer of assets, I said, opening my laptop. As CFO, I have a fiduciary duty to ensure the new owner receives all relevant accounts before my resignation becomes effective at 5 o'clock. New owner, he repeated, tasting the words. He grabbed Zahara's hand. Did you hear that, babe? New owner? At 4 o'clock sharp, Arthur Sterling walked in. He was a man of the old-school three-piece suit, pocket watch, and a face carved from granite. He looked at Marcellus, then at Zahara, and finally at me. His eyes lingered on me for a second, a flicker of sadness behind the spectacles, before he cleared his throat. We are here to read the last will and testament of Otis Jefferson, Sterling said, his voice gravelly. Is the divorce final? Stamped and sealed. Old man. Marcellus slammed the decree onto the polished wood. I am a single man. No strings attached. Sterling picked up the document, adjusted his glasses, and verified the judge's signature. He nodded slowly. Very well. Let us proceed. He opened the leather-bound folder. The room went silent. Even Zahara stopped chewing her gum. Article 1. Sterling read. I, Otis Jefferson, being of sound mind, hereby bequeath 100% of the shares of Jefferson Shipping, including all real estate holdings, the fleet of 20 vessels, and the port operations terminals, to my only son, Marcellus Jefferson. Marcellus slammed his fist on the table. Boom! Did you hear that? All of it. The ships, the port. He jumped up, pulling Zahara into a dip. We are rich. Baby! We are dynasty rich. Sterling waited. He didn't smile. He didn't congratulate the heir. He just watched Marcellus dance around the room, hooting like a frat boy who just won a beer pong tournament. Is that it? Marcellus laughed, breathless. Where do I sign? I've got a yacht waiting. Please sit down. Mr. Jefferson, Sterling said. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I have not finished reading the will. What else is there? Marcellus waved his hand dismissively. The old man's coin collection? Give it to Imani. She likes old, dusty things. Article 2. Sterling continued, his voice rising just enough to cut through the noise. Assets and liabilities. I clasped my hands on the table. My pulse didn't quicken. I watched Marcellus sit back down. A smug grin plastered on his face. He thought he had just crossed the finish line. He didn't know he had just stepped off a cliff. Article 2 regarding liabilities. Sterling continued, his voice monotone, like a judge reading a death sentence. The estate includes the primary asset, Jefferson Shipping, which currently carries a secured debt load of $600 million to the Sovereign Bank of Commerce. Zahara gasped audibly. 600 million? You said you were rich. But Marcellus just laughed. He waved his hand dismissively, leaning back in his chair with that arrogant smirk that had been plastered on his face since the funeral. Relax, babe. He chuckled, winking at her. It's just numbers. Old news. Dad told me about the insurance. The big cleanup policy. He bought it years ago to wipe the slate clean when he died. He turned to me, his eyes gleaming with triumph. See, I'm not stupid. Imani. I know about the safety net. Dad covered his tracks. The insurance pays the debt. I get the assets. You get nothing. Move on. Sterling. I nodded slowly. You are right. Marcellus. There is a policy. Otis bought it to protect the company. See. Marcellus pointed a finger at me. She admits it. Read the next part. Old man. Get to the payday. Sterling didn't move. He didn't turn the page. He looked over the rim of his spectacles, his expression unreadable. Yes. Mr. Jefferson. There is a credit life insurance policy valued at $600 million. Great. Marcellus yawned. So cut the check. However, Sterling said, the word hanging in the air like a guillotine blade. The policy contains a specific rider, Clause 18b. 18 what? Marcellus frowned, his patience thinning. The Guardian Clause. Sterling read, enunciating every syllable. The full payout of this policy is contingent upon the primary beneficiary, Marcellus Jefferson, maintaining a legal marital union with the appointed guardian, Mrs. Imani Banks, at the time of the asset transfer. The room went dead silent. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioner and the ticking of the clock on the wall. Marcellus froze. His smile didn't disappear instantly, it twitched, faltering as his brain tried to process the words. I don't get it. What does that mean? It means, Sterling said, placing the divorce decree on top of the will, that the insurance company requires a stable leadership structure to release such a massive sum. They trusted Mrs. Banks. They do not trust you. The condition for the payout was your marriage. Sterling looked straight into Marcellus's eyes. The divorce decree you rushed through the courts this morning. It legally voided your marriage 4 hours ago. By signing that paper, Mr. Jefferson, you triggered a cancellation event for the entire policy. I watched the blood drain from his face. It was fascinating. In every war, the most fatal weakness is not a lack of ammunition or money, it is hubris. The arrogance of the winner. Marcellus and his mistress had celebrated on the deck of a sinking ship, convinced they were walking on water. They believed I was just a stupid, submissive wife who could be discarded without consequence. History has proven time and again that the man who is most confident is the easiest to kill. I didn't need to fight him. I just had to use his own arrogance as the rope. And he had happily tied the noose around his own neck. So, Marcellus stammered, his voice cracking, sounding like a frightened child. If the insurance is cancelled, what happens to the debt? The debt remains, Sterling said coldly. You inherited the company, Mr. Jefferson, which means you inherited the liability. You now own a shipping empire that owes the bank $600 million. And since the collateral, the ships and the port, does not cover the full amount due to recent market depreciation, the bank will look to your personal assets to cover the difference. Personal assets? Marcellus whispered. Everything, Sterling said. The house, the cars, the accounts, even that watch on your wrist. Marcellus looked down at his $45,000 Rolex. His hands started to shake. He looked at me, his eyes wide with horror and betrayal. You knew, he rasped. Imani. You knew. Why didn't you tell me? I stood up, smoothing the wrinkles on my skirt. I picked up my handbag. I tried to tell you. Marcellus, I said softly. For 5 years. I tried to tell you to grow up. I tried to tell you to read the documents. I tried to tell you to respect the people who kept you afloat. You didn't listen then. I doubt you would have listened today. I turned to the door. You wanted to be a single man with a legacy. Marcellus. Congratulations. It's all yours. The silence in the room broke not with a scream, but with the vibration of a phone. Then another. Then 3 more. Marcellus's phone lit up on the mahogany table. Capital One, alert. Account, frozen. Then, Zahara's phone pinged. Transaction declined. Uber black. Sterling pressed a button on his intercom. Notify the Sovereign Bank legal team. The condition has failed. Proceed with the asset seizure immediately. Wait. Marcellus scrambled out of his chair, grabbing Sterling's arm. You can't do this. I am a Jefferson. I own this town. You own nothing. Tucson, Sterling said, peeling Marcellus's fingers off his suit jacket like he was removing a stain. You are $600 million in the hole. And since you just waived your right to a spousal shield, the bank is already putting liens on your personal property. The villa? Seized. The yacht? The harbor master is chaining it to the dock as we speak. Even that car parked outside is likely being towed. Marcellus spun around, looking for an ally. He locked eyes with Zahara. Baby. Tell them, he pleaded, his eyes wild. Tell them it's a mistake. We'll fix this. We're a team. Right? Zahara stood up slowly. She looked at the divorce decree on the table. Then she looked at the panic sweating through Marcellus's shirt. The mask of the adoring girlfriend dissolved instantly, revealing the cold calculation underneath. 600 million in debt? She asked, her voice flat. It's just paper, Marcellus yelled. I'll fix it. I just need time. You don't have time, she said, slinging her Birkin bag over her shoulder. And you don't have money. Which means you don't have me. Zahara? Don't call me, she spat. And don't come to the hotel. I'm not paying for your room. She walked out the door without looking back. The sound of her heels clicking on the marble floor was the only eulogy for their relationship. Rats don't apologize when they flee a sinking ship, they just run. Marcellus stood alone in the center of the room. His empire. His fortune. His woman gone in 60 seconds. He turned to me. The shock in his eyes curdled into pure, unadulterated rage. You. He growled, his face turning a violent shade of red. You planned this. You bitch! You set me up! He lunged. He scrambled across the table, knocking over the pitcher of water, his hands clawing for my throat. Fix it. Sign the paper again. Marry me again. Fix it. I didn't flinch. I didn't scream. I just watched him coming. 2 security guards materialized from the shadows of the hallway. Before Marcellus could touch the hem of my jacket, he was tackled. Hard. His face smashed into the plush carpet. The gold Mont Blanc pen, the one he used to sign his own destruction, rolled away under the table. Get off me, he screamed, thrashing like a trapped animal. I am Marcellus Jefferson. That's my wife. She has to help me. I stood up and walked over to where he was pinned on the floor. I looked down. I am not your wife. Marcellus, I said, my voice cutting through his sobbing. I am the guardian you fired. And unlike your father, I don't bail out bad investments. I nodded to Sterling. Thank you. Arthur, I believe my business here is concluded. Indeed. Ms. Banks, Sterling said, adjusting his cuffs. Take him out. The guards dragged him out of the office. He was kicking and screaming, begging for a second chance, begging for a loan, begging for me. His voice echoed down the hallway until the elevator doors shut, sealing him into his new reality. He wanted to be a king. Now he was just a pauper in a designer suit that he couldn't afford to dry clean. 6 months later, the view from my corner office at Horizon Logistics, Jefferson Shipping's fiercest competitor, is breathtaking. From the 42nd floor, the cargo ships in the harbor look like children's toys floating in a bathtub. I drink my espresso, black, and review the quarterly earnings. Since I took over as CEO, we have acquired 3 of Jefferson's old routes. The market doesn't care about bloodlines or legacies. It cares about competence. And I have plenty of that. I heard about Marcellus yesterday. A dock foreman told me they hired a new guy off the books to scrub the barnacles off the hulls of the incoming tankers. It's brutal, back-breaking work, usually reserved for people who can't pass a background check. He lives in a motel room by the airport, paid for in cash, always looking over his shoulder for the process servers and bank agents who are still hunting him down for the millions he owes. He is a ghost in the very kingdom he thought he was born to rule. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the women who call me lucky. They say I was lucky to escape. They say I was lucky to find out about the insurance clause. But luck had nothing to do with it. In love, we are often taught that talking about money is unromantic. We are taught that trust means sharing everything, even our blindness. But the brutal reality is that money is the steel shield that protects your dignity. Why was I able to turn the tables on Marcellus? Not just because I was smart, but because I understood the flow of capital. I knew that a woman without financial secrets is a woman without a safety net. A secret emergency fund. A separate account. A deep understanding of the contracts you sign. These are not acts of betrayal. They are acts of wisdom. They are the oxygen tank you keep for yourself when the cabin pressure drops. I didn't hand my oxygen mask to Marcellus. I put mine on first. And because of that, I am breathing. I put down my coffee cup and pick up my pen. I have a merger to sign. I have a life to build. I am not a widow. I am not a victim. I am Imani Banks. And I built my own castle. Brick by brick. On a foundation of truth that no storm can wash away. If you believe women need to hold financial power to master their lives, please like and share this story.